Look, guys, this is so cute. Watch.
Oh.
There's little peas inside.
Oh.
Oh,
Peas in a
this is
pod.
the pea pod I grew up thinking about as a child. They're so cute. Hey guys, I'm Anna.
And I'm Brian.
And we are Those Annoying Vegans. And we are going to do a little mukbang rebuttal.
Yeah. As you guys know, What the Health recently came out on Netflix, and it has been watched by a lot of people. A lot of people have been talking positively about it. There's been a few people out there trying to debunk it. Vox very popularly came out with a rebuttal. Joe Rogan, Z-Dog, and now Unnatural Vegan came out with a video called A Vegan Debunks What the Health. She had some thoughts on the documentary, and we have some thoughts on her thoughts about the documentary. So we wanted to share that with you guys, and of course, eat a delicious meal while doing it.
What are we eating?
What we're eating is our very own recipe.
Yes, it is our roasted tomato. Wait, we had a problem with this in that video. Our spicy roasted tomato pasta. But we added a roasted red pepper. You can make it yourself.
You can check out the recipe down below. Now, keep in mind, when we made this recipe, that was in our baby vegan days. Yeah. We were newly vegan. Yeah. And we used a
ton of oil.
A lot of oil.
A lot of oil.
So today we have made it without the oil. We used veggie stock instead. And we replaced the almond milk. We actually used pea protein milk by Rebuttal.
We also made mashed potatoes. It's one of our favorite foods. And of course, gotta have bread.
Yeah.
Gotta have bread.
Garlic bread and pasta. That's
whole wheat pasta, because we're not afraid of carbs.
No, why would you be?
Of course we have a side of snap peas and carrots.
We've also got some Go Veggie vegan parm to top it with, and we've also be using oregano instead of basil this time. Don't.
Oregano on everything. You want some?
Yes, please.
On everything or just the pasta?
Yeah, you do everything. Oregano everywhere. Parm.
That
enough? Mm-hmm. Really?
No, but
I know you like your Go Veggie parm.
I know, but I don't want to use it all up.
Okay.
Because I might want a second helping.
Oh, okay.
We'll see. 2 pounds of pasta is a lot, so we'll have plenty of leftovers.
Unless we just eat everything. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's really good. There's something about eating pink pasta too that is so appetizing to me.
Kind of like a vegan vodka sauce or something.
That's what I was gonna say.
Oh, really? Were you? We think the same.
Yeah, we do.
So if you guys aren't familiar with Unnatural Vegan, the first thing you should know is that
she's vegan.
She is vegan. But
in fact, in this video, the first thing she does is clarify that.
Hey guys, so I just want to start this off quickly by saying that I am vegan.
Because maybe there's something about the way she delivers her message that's a little confusing to vegans and non-vegans alike.
It probably opens her channel up to staunch non-vegans, perhaps.
Because that would be interpreted as, oh, you're being objective.
Right. You can't just agree with everything in What the Health, because then you're jumping on a bandwagon. We're going to stick to some key points that we wanted to talk about. We're not going to play the entire video, but I don't know. You want to talk about it?
No, let's talk about it.
Diabetes is not and never was caused by eating a high carbohydrate diet, and it's not caused by eating sugar. The cause of diabetes is a diet that builds up the amount of fat into the blood. I'm talking about a typical meat-based, animal-based diet. You can look into the muscle cells of the human body and you find that they're building up tiny particles of fat that's causing insulin resistance. What that means is the sugar that is naturally from the foods that you're eating can't get into the cells where it belongs. It builds up in the blood, and that's diabetes.
So Bernard is saying two things here and implying a third. So the first thing he's saying is that there is this buildup of fat in the muscle and that this is what causes type 2 diabetes. The second thing he says is that this fat is coming from animal products. And then the third, he's implying that a high carbohydrate diet is preferable.
This is kind of an ongoing issue with her, is the fat versus carbs. She seems to be very pro-fat and anti-carb.
Yeah, at least that's what we're getting.
But I can't imagine that she likes oil. I don't think that would make sense, because most vegans say stay away from oil as well, because oil is very fatty.
Yeah, oil is across the board not great for you. She says he implies that a high carb diet is the diet he recommends.
Yeah.
But I never heard him say that.
He didn't say that.
He just said that diabetes is not caused by a high-carb diet.
It's caused by a typical American standard diet, which contains a lot of meat, a lot of dairy, and those foods have saturated fats in them.
So, am I missing something?
Yeah, I don't know what the argument is.
I guess I don't either.
Well, it's true that a buildup of fat in the muscle has been associated with insulin resistance. Where is the evidence that this is caused by an animal-based diet?
So the buildup of intramyocellular lipids, where is the evidence that that's caused by a meat-based diet?
Everywhere.
Have you seen America? Where's the evidence for an increase in type 2 diabetes in meat-eating civilizations or meat-eating countries? People always go like, we don't have all the evidence. In terms of ingesting animal products and ingesting saturated fat and cholesterol and what that does to human beings' health, we have decades of data on that one. As soon as you take a person and take them off of animal products,
they start doing really well.
Start doing better. Again, I think she's getting at the fact that a vegan diet can also have fat in it. We know.
Yes.
All that Dr. Barnard said was that high fat intake is associated with a standard American diet because of the animal products in that diet.
Right.
Not to mention this study that shows that vegans have, on average, a lower storage of intramyocellular lipids. I guess this is just the biggest coincidence in the world.
I don't know.
It's just vegans have lower rates of type 2 diabetes, but diabetes is not caused by animal products, even though those are the only products that vegans cut out of their diet.
Right. You got to get back to the common thread. What happens when you pluck out animal products? Your health thrives. When you do it smartly, you will experience an increase in your well-being.
Unless you go vegan and you switch over to just Oreos and Mountain Dew. I mean...
Right. That's what I mean by smartly.
I don't think that Dr. Neil Barnard and Dr. Michael Greger and Dr. Michael Clapper and all these doctors, when they talk about a plant-based diet, they're not talking about getting your Taco Bell burritos al fresco.
Yeah.
They're talking about eating whole plant foods.
Doesn't mean you can't enjoy a little vegan Taco Bell every once in a while, but...
The women who were eating a low-carb diet high in animal fats and animal proteins, they did not have any sort of reduction in diabetes risk.
Low-carb, high animal fat has no noticeable decrease in type 2 diabetes risk. Wait, isn't that what we're saying?
That's what we're saying.
You just said that when you eat a low-carb, high animal fat diet, there's no reduction in type 2 diabetes. But when you choose plant protein instead of animal protein, you see a reduction in type 2 diabetes. Which again,
right.
I don't know what she's arguing.
Although that's certainly a far cry from animal products cause diabetes.
It's not that far of a cry.
No, I'm so confused.
Eco Atkins, and it's basically the vegan version of an Atkins diet, of a low-carb, high-fat, high-protein diet. This study compared it to a low-fat vegetarian diet and found that while both groups lost about the same amount of weight, the Eco Atkins group saw greater improvements in blood pressure and blood lipid profiles.
Wild confusion on my part, because she's saying that Eco Atkins, which as she says is the vegan version of an Atkins diet, high fat, low carb, vegan. People on an Eco Atkins diet saw better blood lipids and better blood pressure than those on a lacto-ovo vegetarian diet. Lacto-ovo vegetarians eat milk and eggs and cheese. So again, when you remove the milk and the egg and the cheese, you see an improvement in blood lipids.
I don't. When I watched the video, because we watched it independently of each other, I wrote down a bunch of notes. I'm like, I think she's saying what we always say, like what vegans always say. But she seems to present it
sounds contrarian.
Yeah.
But is actually just saying kind of the same thing that the documentary is saying.
This idea that carbs make you fat is utterly ridiculous. Carbs cannot make you fat in and of themselves. We have storage in our muscles and in our liver for carbs called glycogen. So when we eat carbs, we either store it or we burn it. Now, eat fat, that goes straight to your fat. Your body can't turn those carbs into fat unless you're really overdoing the calories.
So what he says here is mostly true, but I fear I fear it's very misleading. It is true that it is more efficient. It is easier for your body to turn dietary fat into body fat than it is for your body to turn carbs into body fat. But this doesn't mean that carbohydrates play no role in diabetes. I mean, refined carbs like sugary soda certainly have been associated with an increased risk for diabetes.
Her whole thing is that not all fat is the same. There's bad fat and there's good fat. Now, Dr. Davis is saying that carbs are actually not going to make you overweight as quickly as fat will. And she's like, well, hold on, not all, because some carbs are bad. It's like, yes. Your whole thing is that some fat is bad. Yet he says carbohydrates and she jumps straight to refined sugars and soda and candy and shit.
He didn't say go drink 2 liters of Coca-Cola.
He said that carbs don't cause weight gain in the same way that fat causes weight gain. People have this misconception that carbs are bad for you. And so they just put a blanket out there, no carbs. We're eating potatoes right now.
Yeah.
We boiled them, then we mashed them in a bowl, and now we're putting them in our faces. What is wrong with this carbohydrate?
There's
What's
nothing
wrong with
wrong.
whole grains? What's wrong with corn? There's so many carbs out there that are fine. Hold on a second, refined carbs are bad.
We know.
Of course, Dr. Davis and Dr. Barnard would tell you that themselves.
Yeah.
No distinction is made between whole carbohydrates and refined carbohydrates. That's a huge problem. Now, I'm sure that Bernard, Davis, Gregor, pretty much everyone in the film, none of them want people to replace animal products with sugar or with, just white bread or something. I'm sure that's the case. And they might have even said as much in the interviews. I would not be surprised, but unfortunately, that's not what we got.
Where is there not a distinction? I don't get it.
Did they say, hey man, go eat cookies and cake? That was never said. I think it's pretty much in the general zeitgeist that like soda, candy, cookies, cake, the
Refined, processed.
refined sugar,
Are not good for you.
that's not good for you, and that's not what people mean when they say carbs. The point of this segment of the documentary, I think, is to quell people's fear of carbs. That's it. It's not to say that refined sugar is good for you, because they don't say that. It's to tamp down the anti-carb fear. It's really naive, as Dr. Barnard said, to just say, oh, diabetes, you have a lot of sugar in your blood, must be because you eat a lot of sugar. That's a good place to start. But once we figured out that no, in fact, it's fat building up in your cells, preventing your cells from having access to that sugar in your blood, and then the sugar continues to build up in your blood. So I would say that once you have type 2 diabetes, then soda and candy and cookies and all that stuff, it's only going to make things worse.
Right.
And we're not even saying that soda and candy and cookies and cake is good. You don't need to just blanket fear the word carbohydrate.
For whatever reason, the filmmakers, Kip and Keegan, decided to give us this just overly simplistic message of carbs are good, animal products and fat are bad.
Okay, first of
Animal
all,
products are bad. Let's establish that.
yeah, animal products, super bad.
Bad.
But then you added and fat. The film seems to be saying that carbs are good and animal products are bad because of the fat that is in them. I don't think they say that fat from an avocado is bad,
Right.
or fat from nuts is bad. They say that meat and cheese are bad and they're loaded with saturated fat.
We're not one way or the other. We're not pro-carb or pro-fat.
Some plant foods have carbs in them. Some plant foods have fat in them. Some have both. What?
And the filmmakers are correct that dairy has been linked to prostate cancer in men, obviously. But this does not mean that every negative claim about dairy is correct. And it doesn't mean that just because there is a study or even several studies that indicate a positive correlation with cancer, diabetes, heart disease, whatever, that these studies are the final word.
Just because there's been a study or two or three or several studies, that doesn't mean that there's any conclusive results based on the studies. But this whole time she's been using studies.
You will find that most studies that promote dairy and eggs and meat products are funded by the industry. That's not a secret. I mean, not only did you see it in What the Health, but we've looked it up ourselves.
There's no final word on dairy.
I mean,
How about the fact that it's breast milk from a cow?
just like Dr. Barnard says in his debunking of What the Health, he says it's very well orchestrated by nature that every mammal is weaned at some point in their lives, preferably when they're very, very young.
Just the general concept, like you take a potato grows out of the ground. To me, eating that makes so much more sense than eating something that is derived from the breast milk of a pregnant cow. I can't see it any other way. This food that grows out of the earth that we as herbivores can grab with our hands, dig up and eat, rather than suckle from an animal that's not even your own species. It's weird. You can talk about bread and pasta and potatoes all you want. Oh my gosh, they have carbs in them.
Yeah.
But they're not breast milk, they're not chicken periods, they're not dead animal flesh.
Any diet works. Any diet works if people follow it.
If you listen to what he says that any diet works. And again, that's true.
What? Any diet works for diabetes?
Problem solved.
So you have this doctor who's not being informative or conversational at all. Most doctors are happy to talk to you and answer questions. He could have gotten himself out of that hole easily, but there's a reason why he didn't, and he decided to walk away from it. And then you have these other doctors telling you there is a cause for diabetes. If any diet works, why is there even a diet plan? Why not just eat everything?
Any diet.
Any
so
diet
the standard American
works.
diet works, apparently.
We know that these chronic illnesses like diabetes and heart disease, they are dietary illnesses. Genetics, as we know, play a part, but a very, very small part.
Oh.
I, for one, have a history of cholesterol in my family. Guess what? I don't have anymore since I went vegan.
Dr. Michael Greger even says the same thing. He says that you can be dealt a bad hand genetically, but then you can alter the expression of your genes through diet. You have high cholesterol, quote unquote, stop eating cholesterol. Guess what happened? Your cholesterol scores went down. You have a history of heart disease, or you have a history of stroke in your family, and guess what you can do? You can prevent heart disease and stroke by not eating the foods that cause atherosclerosis.
You know what I think it was? It was probably an editing error. She maybe cut off an adjective, because maybe she meant to say any diet works blank. Better, worse, sometimes,
Horribly?
maybe.
Any diet works horribly.
And not even all vegan diets work if you don't do them right.
This argument drives me nuts because it gets us literally nowhere when people just go like, hey, there are many diets that work for many different people. People are different. Not everyone's the same. I got news for you. We actually all are the same.
Yeah.
We're all Homo sapiens. If we can look objectively at bears and cats and dogs and lions and mice and meese, we can look at all the other animals on planet Earth and go, this is what they naturally eat, this is what's good for them, this is what's not good for them. You know, you look at the pet food industry, for example, which is horrible, you know, and factory farming where they're feeding cows corn and they're feeding chickens corn. We know, hey, these animals aren't supposed to be eating this, they should be eating this. When they eat these foods, this is what happens.
We get sick.
You know, they eat these foods, this is what happens. How can we not look at ourselves the exact same way? We're just
Why
another
are we
animal.
so special? You know how all human beings, there is like a standard body temperature that we have. I was in my doctor's office a few months ago, and the little screen on the thermometer was lit, and I could see the temperatures that were taken of all the different people before me, and they were all like 0.1, 0.2 degrees different from each other, but all around 98.6. Why? Because we're all human beings.
The fact that human beings eat such a wide swath of food across the planet, whether you live closer to the North Pole or whether you live closer to the equator, whether you live rural or urban or whatever, all that does is speak to the adaptability of the human body. We can eat meat, our body will deal with it. We can eat plants and our body will deal with that. But that doesn't mean that there's not an optimum. Overall, this is what's good. Well, I knew of an example that's super specific and rare, and it's like, that doesn't help.
When people are like, my grandmother lived to be 95 and all she ate was meat and cheese. Okay. That is very lucky because that is not what happens to the majority of the population. There are patterns, there's data, there are graphs.
We can compare this directly to smoking.
Right.
Many of us know people who smoke. There are people who smoke who live well into their 90s. But if you're using that as an argument against the non-smoking rhetoric, then I guess what you're saying is, no, smoke. Go ahead and smoke.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's fine.
You might be fine.
You'll live to your 90s. Because that's what happened with this one person. It doesn't work on a macro level.
Right.
There is a trend an overall trend for Homo sapiens sapien. And that trend is the more animal products you eat, the worse you are health-wise. It's like arguing that, hey, you can win an entire volleyball game using nothing but bumps.
It's true.
It's true.
But you know the best way to win that game?
Bump set spike.
Right.
That's why we came up with that. Overall, this works. Granted, there are actual like diseases where, oh, this person's allergic to this food, or this person can't digest this food properly because of a medical issue. But again, we're just gonna take them and put them over here.
Because they're called exceptions. Although, are most people in the world sick nowadays? I don't know.
It makes him look bad, particularly to vegans, you know, people who I think they want the ADA to be hiding something, right? Like secretly the ADA supports a vegan diet, but they won't promote it because, you know, they're funded by Tyson or whatever, which is essentially what the documentary is saying, that these organizations are inherently biased because they are paid for by the meat and dairy industries. I think it's quite a bit more complicated than that.
Not really. How is it complicated? Here's the thing. If these scientists are receiving grants from Tyson Products or Foster Farms, any animal...
American Dairy Council.
The Egg Board Association, you can pretty much bet on it that these scientists aren't going to release a study that defames those products. Because they're never going to get money again.
I don't see the complication. Here's some money so that you do a study. And so I think you'll find that our products aren't unhealthy, right?
Right. Why would they even bother with studies? Why not just stick to commercials?
Yeah.
Why fund a study at all? Do you think they're going to fund a study that makes them look bad? Why would they do that? Generally, I would say if you want to know whether to trust a study or not, even at the bottom of some of these studies, there is a little paragraph that in bold, it says conflicts of interest. And it will state them.
It very much reminds me of a recent study that I covered. You can check that out here. The Shorter Kids Non-Dairy Milk study. One of the authors was funded, some of his work was funded in the past by the dairy industry. And so as a result, many vegans just dismissed the study as propaganda. But why exactly? I mean, is there evidence that this skewed the data in any way, that the data was somehow skewed? Not to my knowledge.
It's not necessarily skewing data, because that implies that you're lying about the results.
The numbers. It's interpreting. I mean, just look at the email exchange that has been shared to figure out how to best get the word out there on eggs. There are ways to word things so that you fool the public.
Hey, we want to prove that eggs don't raise cholesterol all that much. Okay, here's how we'll do that. We'll get a population of people that already have really high cholesterol, and then we will add an egg to their diet every day and see if that causes a bump in their cholesterol levels. And guess what? It doesn't really cause that much of a bump. They're not lying. One egg a day in this population of people didn't really see that much of an increase in your cholesterol levels. So eggs are fine.
And, you know, if we're really going to dismiss studies and organizations because of potential bias, then we really need to be consistent. I mean, look at Neil Barnard, like I mentioned earlier in this very documentary. I mean, he actually fights for animal welfare. He advocates for plant-based diets. Should we just dismiss his studies on diabetes and vegan diets because he's biased?
He's not getting money from Tofurky. Advocating is a whole different ballgame. Advocating for animal rights, advocating for a vegan diet. As a doctor, there's nothing wrong with having compassion and also knowing that a vegan diet is better for you.
Maybe the ADA, the AHA, maybe they are recommending foods or tweaking their guidelines in certain ways to favor the meat and dairy industries because of financial ties. Possibly. Or they may be recommending these foods because they fear that a stricter diet would just be too hard for people to follow. That's possible too.
That's not a good reason to recommend those foods.
People aren't going to want to go vegan, so let's tell them to eat chicken and tuna.
Even though we know it's unhealthy.
Just saying that, oh, people aren't going to want to hear that, so we'll soften the blow a little bit. That doesn't actually do the public any good. It took us a few decades to do this. But everyone knows that cigarettes are bad.
Yeah.
Everyone. There's not a single person that goes, oh, smoke in moderation, it's fine. As long as you smoke like 1 to 2, like 3 cigarettes, one at every meal a day, Fine. More organizations need to come out with a firm stance, not this, because as soon as you go, all that does is muddy the water. People need a clear message.
I don't get why all these corporations who have so many millions of dollars don't just move to a different product that's easier to make, that's healthier.
It's the same argument that I hear when talking about new sources of energy, and when it's like, well, you realize that like ExxonMobil and all these gas companies, they're keeping the electric cars down, man. Why don't they just start making electric cars?
Yeah.
And then
You
problem
know that's
solved.
where it's going.
If you're Tyson, why don't you start making meatless chicken patties?
Yeah. Why go through all of that when you can just make plant-based products that are healthier for people? I don't get it. Instead of fighting it, realize that your product is making people sick.
And especially if you see something cutting into your business. Best Foods, for example, a huge hypocritical move, but they made it. They said, hey, this vegan mayo cutting into our business a little bit. And so we're going to sue them for the name. You can't call it mayo. And then they were like, all right, we'll just start making vegan mayo. No one in the room raises their hand and goes, hey, boss, why don't we start selling vegan chicken nuggets? And that way it'll still be a familiar brand name to people, but they can buy the vegan version.
Right. Maybe we don't know anything about business.
Probably not.
Many national health recommendations advise people to limit intake of processed meat and red meat, which are linked to increased risks of death from heart disease, diabetes, and other illnesses.
Eating meat has known health benefits. Yes, it's like saying that Coca-Cola has potassium in it, and that's why you drink it.
And it's low sodium.
Right. Health benefits. Is it overall good for you? No.
I'm not suggesting that these organizations are perfect or that their guidelines are perfect, but to suggest that these organizations are promoting diets that are just wholly unhealthy, as Kip and Keegan seem intent on doing, is just wrong.
So she's upset that Kip and Keegan focused on the recipes on the websites of these organizations because they advertised food that's not good for you. She says, well, actually, if you go to their site and you look up sources of protein, they do list beans and legumes and lentils and nuts and seeds as sources of protein. And that's great. He's talking about when people go to the American Diabetes Association.
Looking for what should I eat?
Exactly.
Because that's the number one thing when someone gets diabetes, right? What can I eat?
The ADA has, under their quick lunch meal plan, a recipe that includes deli meat, which is a processed meat.
A group 1 carcinogen.
And they also like eggs for protein, loaded with cholesterol and saturated fat, so not good for you. It doesn't matter that you have another section on your website where you say, well, actually, it's not necessarily the best thing for you. If you have a recipe over here that has the stuff in it, then it kind of defeats the purpose of having that other page on your website. It's either bad for you or it's good for you. And if it's bad for you, then don't put it in your recipe.
Like in What the Health, just because you're consuming less toxins doesn't mean it's healthy. You're just consuming less toxins.
There's no question that rates of obesity, heart disease, diabetes, even cancer would fall if people followed their guidelines, the ADA guidelines, the American Cancer Society guidelines, to eat less processed foods, to exercise moderately and regularly, and to maintain a healthy weight. And it's no secret that you don't have to go vegan. You don't have to eat a vegan diet to accomplish this. Although the animals would certainly appreciate it.
Yes, they would fall if people ate less, but rates would plummet.
Or disappear.
Or disappear if they went vegan. It goes back to the less toxic doesn't equal healthy, it just equals less toxic.
How about let's encourage people to cut all these products from their diet so that they can completely eliminate their risk factors.
Again, cigarettes. If it was just like, listen, here's the real deal. You shouldn't smoke at all.
Yeah.
I know, you're addicted. You've been
know,
smoking
it's
for
hard.
20 years. It's going to be very difficult, but you really need to stop smoking.
Any sort of addiction is difficult to let go of.
It will kill you.
Yeah.
So we need to stop this. Not, hey, buddy, pal, how you doing, trooper? Let's talk about those eggs. Everyone has a different opinion of what moderation is, and the word moderation just is another word that means allow.
People I talk to all the time say like, oh, but it tastes so good, and oh, like they're conflicted. They know it's bad for them. They know they don't feel well, but they know that it's a hard habit to let go of. We want to help people as best we can get on a vegan diet, try it out gradually or overnight, whatever works for you. After everything we've learned, after everything we've experienced, researched, read about, we ate meat for 25 plus years ourselves, and I have never felt better. Ever. And that's what every vegan out there says, pretty much. Friends we've spoken to who are just transitioning, they're like, yeah, I'm starting to feel really good.
Yeah.
Like, that's something.
I really don't know what Unnatural Vegan's point was at criticizing this documentary, especially the way that she did it. I get it that even if you believe that like justice is on your side, that's no excuse to lie or skew data or purposefully misinterpret things to your point of view just because you believe that you have justice on your side. That's still no excuse, and I get that. She's pulling things out of this documentary that I'm not really sure are there. The number one thing being her insistence that the documentary is pro-carb and anti-fat.
Yeah.
I just didn't get that from this documentary.
No.
It's not a high-carb situation. All I saw were medical professionals saying that in fact, just go down the list, heart disease, stroke, cancer, heart attack, these health problems are caused by animal products. It's just about getting off the animal products and the health benefits that you will see, that we have seen, that every vegan that we've met has seen. So guys, those are our thoughts on Unnatural Vegan's thoughts on What the Health documentary.
This was in no way meant as an attack on her. You know, we know that she is doing her best to present information to you guys. It just feels confusing. We're all on the same team, right? We're all vegan.
You yourself said in this video that your average person wants a simple and easy and convenient way to go vegan. Maybe help with that?
Yeah.
Saying things like, any diet works. You know, there have been a number of diets that have been proven effective. To me, that is sending a further confusing message. Whatever diet you want to follow, just follow it and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, people are following a diet. It's called the standard American diet.
So with that, we leave you guys. We just had to say something because, I don't know, those points just were so confusing. And
yeah, especially coming from a fellow vegan YouTuber. But guys, what are your thoughts? Did you watch her video? Let us know what you thought down below. We'll have a little discussion.
And as always, thanks for watching, and thank you to our lovely Patreon patrons. We're making new shirts soon enough. They'll be up on Etsy. We'll let you know when they're up.
You're doing some good artwork.
Trying. Check them out on our Instagram page too, and follow us if you haven't. We're very active on Instagram.
And if you like this video, please click that thumbs up down below. And if you haven't already,
subscribe.
We will bring you something new every week.
Bye. Why are we even doing that?
To me.